big news dropped that Russell Westbrook is being traded to the Utah Jazz, and he's expected to get bought out and then likely sign with the Nuggets on a veteran minimum. This is basically what we've been waiting for. The Clippers really had all the power in their hands in terms of the actual mechanisms by which Russ could get to the Nuggets, right? Well, because he had opted in to his player option. And so the options were for the Clippers to either trade him or buy him out themselves to get him off their roster. So it was like, is he going to get traded to the Nuggets? Is he going to get traded to somebody else to be bought out? So it's not official yet that he's on our roster, but this is the direction that things are moving. And now we have a concrete move in that direction, which is him getting traded to another team that's going to buy him out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. We had been throughout multiple episodes been talking about the Nuggets in context of Russ being on the team pretty much. Calvin Booth got interviewed at one of these summer league games saying we want what was the word to use? Something about a point guard.
High level guard.
A high
That
level
was
guard.
the quote that he gave with respect to that last roster spot when he was interviewed about it at Summer League.
The first thought that I have is that I'm happy the Nuggets didn't have to give anything else up, that it's just going to be, he's going to be bought out. I think, unless, I don't know if something's been announced that we're rerouting something or something.
So my understanding is we're not involved in this initial deal. So a couple weeks ago during free agency, like the first week of free agency, it was announced that the Clippers were going to be signing Chris Dunn to about a minimum deal. Now, the problem at that point is I believe the Clippers had too many roster spots filled. So that deal hasn't like fully gone through yet. But I kind of anticipated this whole time that with them signing this Chris Dunn as a point guard, uh, to probably be their backup point guard, that maybe Russ would be included in this deal to create the roster space, right? And then Utah, who still has a ton of cap space left that they have to use before the end of the summer, would probably buy him out. Now, part of why the Clippers didn't want to do that initially is maybe they were trying to get an asset back for Russ or not have to give anything up. Here you see that they're giving up a second round pick swap. So that's just, the Jazz are going to be able to swap with the Clippers if they want in the second round in whatever year they give up their pick swap. That's probably not going to mean anything because the Jazz are probably going to be worse than the Clippers for the foreseeable future. And cash. So that's just more cash in the cash coffers for the Jazz to use in other deals. And then they tie all of that into the sign and trade for Chris Dunn. It's interesting because
Yeah.
we saw a lot of sign and trades this offseason, and you don't normally see a sign and trade for a minimum player, which is Chris Dunn in this instance. So, this is just a bit of finagling with the mechanisms that GMs use in order to get this deal done in the most. It seems clumsy, but it ends up at the end of it being the most efficient way to get the deal done
Mhm.
for both sides. Although the Jazz get some cash out of it
Right.
for their trouble, right?
I wonder why it took so long to find that agreement, but it eventually happened. And sign in trades are, yeah, I don't know if they're going to come back into fashion just because of how it allows these things to occur.
I think, this is like deviating into CBA nerd talk, but I actually think we're going to start to see a lot more sign in trades, not just because, say, the rules of the new CBA sort of favor more teams being under the first apron, which is if you're over the first apron, or favors teams being under the first apron, because if you're over the first apron, you can't participate in sign in trades. So there will probably be more teams trying to avoid that so that they have another roster building tool, which will leave sign in trades available. But also because absent the salary floor, which we talked about being an important win for NBA players in the new CBA, helping in free agency, all of the basically every other part of the CBA favors players either staying with their team or getting extended and traded elsewhere. So I actually think that because free agency is downplayed in most aspects of the CBA. It'll be more common to see, uh, especially these margin moves happen via trade as opposed to signing players in free agency, which this kind of is because you end up signing the player. You might see it more in an instance like we saw with Golden State, where they are under the first apron, but they're over the cap. What that means is being over the cap, they wouldn't be able to sign anybody outright in free agency without using like a mid-level exception or something like that. But they can participate in a sign and trade where, in the case of it was Buddy Hield, gets signed by the Sixers technically and then traded to Golden State. So actually, when you're talking about like, I would expect it more to be more common with like bigger contracts, like contracts that Buddy
Yeah.
Hield isn't actually
Harder
more
to
than the mid-level
absorb.
exception, but
Yeah.
exactly like they're you wouldn't be able to sign them outright in free agency, but you could trade for them if you have, those smaller assets in terms of like the contracts that match and all of that. This is not that though. That was like my little CBA nerd corner. But yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about now that it seems like it's actually going to happen,
Hmm.
Russ's fit on the Nuggets.
I think he's going to be a really good locker room presence because he has been known for that. I know people know him as kind of being a problem with the Lakers, maybe. But, fans who have been watching the NBA for a long time know that his teammates love him. I think the Nuggets are going to love him in the locker room. They loved having those like Ish Smith, Jeff Green type veterans in the locker room too. I think Russ is going to be a good kind of vocal cheerleader, I guess, for lack of a better word. I wouldn't say like leader, but who knows? Uh, Basketball fit. The best case scenario is that he is energetic as a backup point guard, that he has enough like spacing around him, and the bigs that he's playing with can be like pick and roll partners with him, and he can create rim pressure and then spray out to Estrada, shooters like that, and that he plays some decent defense and hustles. That's like the best case scenario, I think. The worst case is that his shooting is like so bad and the spacing is just too much of a problem and teams are just sagging off way too much and we're not really employing him in the right way. People become frustrated with how he's operating. He's frustrated, who knows? And then we basically can't play him or can't even play him in the playoffs. Does it end up being kind of a middle ground scenario of that where he's going to have up and down nights where we'll have nights where it is the dream scenario, and we'll have nights where he's going to make some stupid plays and he's going to frustrate some Nuggets fans, and we're going to be like, why did he take that shot? Why did he do that? We never should have signed Russ. It's going to be a lot of that. But I think overall, it's worth having someone like him to try this out. Seems like he has a good relationship with Jokic, which is a plus, and he's a veteran. He used to be an MVP. Obviously, he's not close to that level of play right now, but I think just because I've been thinking about this for so long, I'm just, I guess, happy, like just the most baseline level of happy that it just happened. But I don't think it's like, is he better than Reggie? At least that's like kind of the bar that he needs to hit.
Yeah, I think that Reggie was fine. And I think Russ will be like a little bit better than Reggie at floor. Now, you talk about it in a little bit of rosier terms than I would, where I just see this having a pretty low floor as an experiment. I don't think that he'll necessarily be a bad locker room presence. It'll just be different. He is an intensely competitive individual. He's known to be incredibly intense. And I don't know that the locker room has had somebody with quite that level of intensity in a very, very long time. And that intensity can go either way. So hopefully it gets channeled into just making everybody as competitive as possible, right? It's good, I think, that there is a relationship already established between Russ and Jokic, and he wants to play here like that. From all reports, like his camp has been interested in it ever since reports came out that the Nuggets were interested in him. So that's good. Like, I mean, we want people to want to come play here, right? And so that is definitely encouraging. We've already talked about with CT the rim pressure that he can provide. Like we haven't had, an on ball, ball handler that can really pressure the rim like that since Bruce. And I actually think that Russ could be a little bit better at it, although the finishing is a concern. But like you said, he can operate with the bigs in pick and roll. He can spray out to shooters, all of that. I think that his energy with the second unit is really going to help with their transition attack more than anything,
Yeah, that'd be
because
nice.
we didn't have, like I said, someone who is so comfortable with the ball in their hands that they can really attack in transition when they have the ball. And Russ is, if nothing else, he's that sort of a wrecking ball in transition. And whether that results in, more transition layups or just better transition possessions because people are running the floor a little bit harder, like he's going to push guys to keep up with him. Like he's not somebody who's letting the speed of the game determine how fast he's going to play, again, for better or worse.
Yeah.
So I do think that he's that person that, when he steps on the floor, like the whole tone of how the team is playing could change. And that's in some ways what you want out of a backup point guard, potential six-man kind of player. And we'll see how things go with the shot. Thankfully, we have now Dario Saric, who can help space the floor. We'll have Julian Strother also coming off of the bench. So hopefully that works to balance some things out. Maybe Jokic can heal
Yeah.
Russ.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
really the hope in all of this.
the spacing part and the charge part is important because, yeah, you need to
Yeah.
play him with shooters and spacers, and playing him with people like I'm worried about him playing with like Zeke, stuff like that, because just too many people in one unit that can't really spread and shoot is rough.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the thing with Zeke too is that if he's playing, because we have Sarge, he's probably going to be playing more of that four
Yeah,
and probably spacing more. So even if he can't shoot, he's not going to be clogging the
clogging,
paint because he's sitting there the whole time
right?
because of everyone else's position. So I think that's maybe something to
Hmm.
like the upside of this.
Oh, and he has Piwant on the floor with him
That's
too.
true.
So, you know, Piwant's
They could be
defensive playmaking is going
a
to be
wrecking
big.
ball of a duo for sure,
Hmm.
for
I
better or
just
worse.
I just want the bench to be a little more versatile, and like previously we had been just heavy leaning into the defensive aspect that it was just too much. And so I don't know that Russ like brings you more versatility necessarily, but he just is a point guard and you need somebody to do that in the bench unit. And right now the options are limited, and the writing was on the wall for weeks that it was going to be Russ, and here it is. So not really surprising, but it's cool that it finally happened. It would suck if it kept dragging on for some reason. We couldn't find a way to get him on the team, but it worked out. So at least from that standpoint, it's good that the news finally happened.
I'll be waiting for the official announcement that the Nuggets actually
Oh,
signed him, though. But
yes.
really, my only question at this point, because it's been announced that he's being traded to the Jazz, they're going to buy him out. Utah's not trying to fill a roster spot with a minimum right now. They have cap space to spend. Um, so I'm not worried about him not getting bought out. I just want the signing to be official. But this, I feel pretty like 95% confident now, as opposed to like 60 or 70 before this part was announced.
I
Just
would
because I didn't know if the Clippers would try to hold on to him like into the season, which wouldn't be an option for us to go into the season without a backup point guard.
it would just be crazy to see him finally win a championship with the Nuggets. That would be such a
Yeah, we
sight.
talked
Oh
about
my god.
we talked about how awesome it would be to have another vet in the locker room that everyone else is also playing for to, finally get that ring. So both excited and nervous about the move, but I am glad that the move has like happened because we desperately need more ball handling on
Yeah.
this team. And please remember to like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, leave us a review. We're on Apple Music, we're on Amazon Music, we're on Spotify. Share us with your friends, your enemies, your family, and their enemies. And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks.